Hi, I'm Jacob Oller, entertainment reporter at SYFY Wire, and welcome to the San Diego Comic-Con at Home 2020 panel for LOC. We've got an incredible array of talent from the movie today, including filmmaker Tom Paton. We've got Tala Gouveia, Casper Van Dien, we've got Stephen Moyer, and John Rhys-Davies. Tom, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about LOC?
Hi, everyone. So LOC is a space adventure film, and it centers around Bran Marshall, who escapes a dying Earth and goes through a gate to another place, to a planet called Rhea, and finds himself sort of stuck in an immigration camp trying to run down to the surface, and comes across Tala's character, and let's just say things get a little bit hectic from there.
That is the worst description of the film that I could possibly imagine.
Even mention where John Rhys-Davies comes in.
Well, I'd love to hear the John Rhys-Davies version.
John, why don't you give us your version of what the movie's about?
Yeah.
This is a story of a dwarf's adventure into a new world. No, it's not. It's about Talia and Casper doing wonderful things, with Moya bringing up
the rear,
and right in the right of the background is me carrying all their baggage.
Yes.
That's actually a pretty good description.
Stephen, what drew you to the role of Bran?
I was really impressed by Tom's the scope of what he tries to do within one film, which is talk about sort of fatherly and daughterly love, and how far a father will go for the love of his wife, whom is lost, but also peppered in there is prejudice, and Bran has in Bran's mind, the reason that his wife has been taken from him is because of the people on this planet called Rhea, and which is where Tala's character is from. And so he is prejudiced against everybody from Rhea, and he is almost immovable in his idea of what that means. And he's sort of out for revenge against them in any way that he can sort of hurt them. And it's really about a learning process for him, that everything that he thought was right about his world was actually not so right. And so it's a sort of healing process and a learning process for him that leads to a sort of coming together of his own understanding. And I thought he did it beautifully, and it's funny and it's thrilling, and given that it's in such a sort of small parameters of these sort of enclosed space, spaceship, and a very small cast, I think he just handled it really beautifully. So I loved the character, and I loved his journey. And Tom is also sort of this machine, and he takes ideas really well. If you give him an idea about notes and what you think the character should be doing, or what, he will totally listen to you, and they'll tell you to piss off. No, he really does listen, and he takes the notes and just makes it richer and richer and richer. It's a very collaborative process.
And Tala, you got to play the other side of this kind of adversarial relationship. You got to develop this kind of odd couple thing with Stephen. How was it learning and developing that chemistry, pushing each other's buttons?
It's great. Yeah, I love that it's these two characters that come together who have a very strong idea of what the other people are about, but have never really come into contact properly with these people from this other planet. And they come with a lot of, prejudices and misconceptions. And so a lot of it is them figuring that out. At the beginning, they kind of just want to kill each other a lot, but then they kind of find the humanity in each other, and they join forces.
It was very much like that It was very much like that on set, wanting to kill each other a lot. We didn't.
Yeah.
Tala and I didn't actually get the sort of fruition of coming together at the end. We just hated it.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Now, and Casper, you on top of that, just add another delicious layer to this dynamic. How was preparing for Decker?
Well, honestly, it's easy to just be an asshole. So for me, it was no problem. So I loved it. I loved I loved the opportunity of. I love the script as well. I just consider myself the American version of Steven. So it's I'm the opposite though. We're like the antithesis of everything good in him is what I am. But I loved Tom's script. I loved the character development, and I loved meeting him and going out with him and Steven, and I loved the whole cast. I loved everybody's enthusiasm, and it was just a lot of fun for me to be around this and to portray this role, to come in and to be this guy, kind of like a surprise. It was, I don't want to give away anything. But I enjoyed. I really enjoyed my time on this movie. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Now, John, your character Henry is sort of our grounding element.
Well,
I had no fun with Tom whatsoever.
Our link to her.
Sorry, the reason that I wanted to do it is that it's a really well-written script.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the sci-fi that I see these days is so badly written and so angst-filled, terminally boring, that one longs to take a poison pill to stop on watching it. This is a great story, beautifully told, lovely characters. I play the least important character of all. But in the way that I'm actually the polar opposite of Casper, really. There are different polarities here, you see, and I'm the grounded old Earth man who celebrates the older values, I suppose, of caring for people, protecting people, living generously, and paying the penalty for that, I suppose, really.
Yes.
Well, I have to disagree with you though, John. I think your character is super pivotal to the movie, and really the kind of the driving force behind Bran's change. So yeah, I think it's super important, the role you did in this. So don't put yourself down.
I think emotional core is right.
Look,
John arrives on set and everything stops. And that's mostly because he never stops talking, but it's also because he has a weight to him that really centers the film, like Tom said.
And you may know by my sighs, I have a kind of alacrity in sinking.
He really does grow out of the ground. He's got hairy feet and all.
But it was a lovely experience, and really it really is a super story, and it just has a structure to it that really actually works rather well, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not as important as all these other three main actors are, but it was a delightful experience. I think it's a darn good picture.
Well, part of all that writing comes in with the thematic heaviness of it. A part of it is discrimination. Part of it is an immigrant story. Tom, all of your genre pictures are filled with these connections to their themes. What was the process like writing G-Lock?
Yeah, I mean, for me as a filmmaker, especially in the writing phase anyway, I try to pick, a singular theme and tackle that rather than, I think John's right. One of the things that kind of irks me about a lot of independent cinema that I see is, they try to tackle too many themes in any one given script. And, you know, I very much focus on one thing. And here, you know, what I really wanted to explore was, was how would you like it? You know, if you're one of those people that went and, you know, voted for Brexit in the UK, or if you're, you know, very anti-immigration, you know, like, I'm not saying there's not merit to those arguments. And we try to explore that in a way where it's a very balanced argument, but there's also a journey for every character to go on. So it's, you know, rather than being politically sided in any one way, shape or form, for me, it was about creating a group of characters that all sort of start in different places and come to respect everybody else's opinion, and try to forge the future forward, you know, given, you know, when you make a mess of things, you have to try to pull together and try and clean that up, you know, and you can't get rid of the mess that you've made, but you can work forward. And I think that was kind of what I was trying to do, was have all these opposing characters with these different political opinions, you know, on helping your fellow man, and then sort of throw them at each other and sort of force them to look at each other's perspectives in a way that doesn't put the other character down. You know, even Casper's character, Decker, you know, he's the villain of the film, but, you know, he's a villain for a reason, you know, and the idea was, if you were in his shoes, how would you respond to the situation? So, yeah, it was really about creating a character piece about what it's like to just try and look at it from somebody else's perspective.
Tom, explain where you, the film that you watched that kind of helped you sort of galvanize the idea.
I mean, there was a ton of them. I'm confused which one I told you.
I was meaning the documentary about the journey of the immigrants.
Yeah, there was quite a few. There was a documentary. I'm trying to think of the name of the thing now. It was a while ago that we watched it, but there was a doc I watched that was really kind of tracking this immigrant's journey. And I felt like, as a writer, that, you know, one of the problems that I think you have in cinema is, you know, I can't tell a story about immigration as an immigrant because I'm not one, but I can tell the story from the perspective of, well, if I was to put myself in those shoes, how would I feel? And so a big part of this movie was putting somebody like Stephen in that situation, so that anybody that's never been through that has to see themselves going through something that they don't normally see themselves going through. And that was really where it came from, you know, this idea of giving an audience that when they watch a film about immigration, they don't see a face that reflects their own background. And in this situation, it was like, well, let's flip it and let's make you think about how it would feel to be that guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of indie filmmaking, this is a big step for you, because your other productions have been on a much smaller scale, even if they've been genre pictures or even sci-fi pictures. I know with the release of G-Lock, there's going to be a behind-the-scenes kind of making of featurette. What would aspiring filmmakers learn going behind the scenes of the production of G-Lock?
I mean, from my perspective, you know, yes, we had more money than I usually would be playing with, but you know, I kind of think filmmaking is the same problems, whatever budget level you're at. You know, it's the same issues you're dealing with, and you know, hopefully what you take from the behind the scenes featurette, watching me as a director anyway, is I've always seen my job as like a problem solver. You know, I wake up in the morning, there's 50,000 problems that need sorting, and they're all my fault because I said I wanted to make a film in the first place. So I try to pragmatically approach them, and, you know, you've got to give and take as well. You know, you have to listen to other people's opinions. You know, a film is not made by one guy. It's like Stephen said, it's a collaborative effort. And, you know, if you keep strong to your vision, but you try to sort of pull in all these other great ideas coming from people like Stephen and Casper and John and Tala, you know, because you end up with a much richer product in the back end. And I think that behind the scenes will see me sort of flustering, dealing with issues, and essentially trying to build a better movie by listening to people with a lot more experience in the industry than I had.
Mm-hmm. So what was an idea that any of you brought to the table that made it into the final film and that you think made it better?
Well, I said he came up with ideas and he may have accepted them, but he wouldn't have put them in the film. Very smart direction.
That's a sign of a good manager.
No, do you know what? I mean, you guys can talk about them, but for me, the key things that really sort of altered the movie and gave it a lot more clout, there was 3 big changes. One was Stephen was kind of keen to explore the father-daughter relationship between him and his daughter Riley in the movie, which wasn't really prevalent when Stephen joined the project. And, you know, as we spoke on Skype and he gave me all these cool ideas, I realized how richer that made his character to deep dive into that. And those elements have become like my favorite in the movie. Casper, again, kind of rallied an idea on our Skype call when we first started talking, where he almost becomes a mirror version of Bran, where he's also got a daughter that's lost and a family. So he's like the mirror version of this character. And that's really Casper's injection. Like his concept was to have Decker mirror Bran, you know, and show Bran what he could turn into. And John, there was one moment that I think really changes the whole movie. And John, it came to set. John has a lot of ideas about stuff, and you know, as you know, John. And I'm not the kind of person who's afraid to say no if I don't think it works. And there was a lot of no's going on. And then there was this pivotal speech in the movie where John came up to me and he said, "I don't think my character would say this. I think he'd say this." And then he reeled off a brand new version of this speech that was far better than anything I could ever write. And, you know, and felt like it was coming from a place of experience. And I was like, great, do that. And I remember John's face looked surprised that I'd said yes, and was like, oh God, I hope I can remember what I said. But I mean, really changes the movie for the better. And you know, when people see the trailer, they'll see that voiceovers.
I will say as well. I will say that final day, you know, we had very little time for this film. I think it was 15 or 16, is it 18 days? I can't remember. Yeah. And our final day was what we in England call a kick bollock scramble, which is the last 3 hours. The sun was setting at, I want to say 6:30. And the last 3 hours, we still had 3 scenes to shoot. And we couldn't go over because we couldn't afford to go over. And what that often does, it's a problem that's quite unique to Britain, because they don't pay overtime. So what happens on British sets is, like, in the last hour, they know they've got X amount to do, and so there is this. It makes the filmmaker have to just go, right, we've just got to make this work. How are we going to shoot this? And John got one go at that speech, one go, and that whole scene around the grave, the whole scene that me and John had. The scene which opens the movie, we all had one go, and then we still had a massive scene to shoot that we had about 20 minutes for, Tom?
Something like that. Something like that.
What that does is just kind of creates an electricity, and sometimes it's not going to work, but what you will have is the visceral energy of that. So maybe, you know, you might have wanted to do a subtler version, you might have wanted to do a bigger version, but you can't do that. You just have the version that you've shot. And the one thing that it has is that kinetic kind of drive, whether it's what you would have chosen to do. And John was amazing that day, and everyone just pulled together in a way. And the sun had set, and we'd lost the sun. They agreed to let us have like 15 minutes more, Tom.
Yeah, I think it was about 15 minutes.
About 15 minutes. And we just shot, and everybody got one go at everything we did. And they're 3 of the most pivotal scenes in the film. So it's fascinating when you're in that sort of, in that groove, how you do it and how you have to do it, and what the results are.
And thank God I wasn't scheduled on that day.
Yeah,
me too.
That was totally planned, Casper. We needed to get rid of you by then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, everything on Earth is so, every time we go back to Earth, it is just gut punch, gut punch, gut punch. Like, this is what it's about. This is the movie. I can't believe so many of those things were either improvised or done under such pressure.
Shot in, all the Earth scenes were actually shot in 2 days. And, you know, it was like Stephen said, like, there was a sort of energy behind that, where we'd been inside for the duration of the shoot in the spaceship, and suddenly we're outside. You know, and I think it gave everything a real energy. And I knew those scenes had worked so well because I watched the rough cut with my 81-year-old dad, and he's like a stoic guy, like immovable object, hard to make cry at anything. And when John does his speech, the one that he essentially wrote himself, I saw my dad like fill up, his eyes were welling up, and he was like, "That's how I feel." And so I knew that although we crammed it into those 2 days, it actually given those scenes the clout that maybe they wouldn't have had if we'd have had longer to shoot them. I think
imagine how much more time we'd had as well, Tom. Imagine how much more time we would have had if you hadn't spent like 3 hours trying to shoot the sun. Imagine.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Now, going back on...
But it's great, such great fun, isn't it? I mean, just filmmaking is such fun. I mean, I'm a 76-year-old man and I get to play. I love it.
And the difference between indie filmmaking and something where you've got an enormous budget, where time constraints aren't an issue, is very different. As John, has had the most experience in that world, and that you'll just come back the next day and you'll do it again, and you'll pick another angle and you'll do it again, and that's beautiful. And so you end up with 150 ways of cutting a scene, which is fantastic. But in the indie world, what John's talking about, that level of play and that creation is alchemic. You have to just do it. And there is something really wonderful about that, because it comes down to everybody coming together as an engine, and Tom's a really good driver.
And in a way, that sort of filmmaking actually brings out the absolute necessity of actors to bring out each other's qualities, to find them instantly, and develop them, and use those qualities to enrich the story and the script. And sometimes that works wonderfully, and that's the real joy of it. I mean, it's a coming together of a small group of lunatics, really, for a moment of creation, and that's such fun.
I remember, John, on that last day, we were in the middle of shooting one of the standoff scenes, and John was talking to all the camera boys, and I was sort of around him, and we were all chatting about different stuff and different things we've done, and John was asking about the lenses that we were using. I think we were on Cooks, we were on Cook Primes, weren't we, Tom?
Yeah, no, we were using Scorpio anamorphics.
Yes, we were using the Scorpio. Is Scorpio?
Yeah.
Yeah. And John said, "Oh, I've got something you might be interested to see." And he went off to his car, and he came back with 500 mil.
Well, we probably got something here. So.
Oh, God, here we go.
The magic.
Sorry, the lenses are over there, if you can see a few of them.
It's that giant one on the top.
But there is that big 500 mil as well, 560. It's
that embarrassing moment when the actors brought back it.
You just had it in the
over there.
They had it in his boot.
I will. The rest is just chaos, I'm afraid.
Doesn't look like it, John.
Oh, well, it really is chaos. No, I'm not going to show you. It's just...
John, show us what's the picture behind you when you're sitting down. John?
What? Yep.
Sit down again. What's that picture behind you there?
You mean...
It's behind you.
That one?
Yes, what's that?
Oh, this is rather nice. This is the great Henry Irving.
Oh, yeah?
All right. As Hamlet. And down here we have...
Can you read it to us, John?
This is I, Hamlet the Dane, Henry Irving.
Wow, that's awesome.
Amazing.
Yes, Sir Henry was the first knight of the theatre, as you probably know. I'm sorry about the reflections; they're not good. I tell you what, this is a bit of fun too.
Excellent.
We've learned everything about G-Loc. We've moved.
I took it out of the. Can we see that?
Yes.
Can we see that?
Mm-hmm.
Read it to us, John.
You get to read it, John.
Ancient Egyptian
mummy cloth.
Whoa.
Excavation at Thebes by Professor Flinders Petrie.
Whoa.
Now,
Did
was
you
that
steal that from
That's
Raiders
quite
of the
fun
Lost Ark?
Oh, what am I doing? Yeah, you were looking at my ear then.
It's
That's
gorgeous.
quite fun too. That's
That rocks.
nice, quite late Neolithic polished axe. Anyway, really relevant, isn't it, to our little
I would honestly do.
our little thing. I hope somebody's going to edit
I'd do a
this.
Comic-Con Zoom
About
call.
inanities.
Oh,
This
it's
is
your
just
room.
Late now.
a whole new
You
attraction.
don't get.
Anyway,
You don't get that.
what else? What else?
Now, with the condensed shooting schedule, Casper and Tala and Steven, how is it like shooting and choreographing those fight scenes on the spaceship?
For spaceship, read tubular wooden exterior of a pig farm.
Yeah. It was tight, wasn't it? It was
pretty
a small
tight.
space to do big fights.
Yeah.
Um,
Again, I think it's, I don't know about you, Casper, but I think it's about intention. It's you can get away with an awful lot by knowing where you're at, where your character's at. And so the fight doesn't need to be necessarily as detailed and as elaborate as you might do if you were in a giant open space, but you need to go at it with the right intent, because then it will feel real. And I actually thought the lighting was superb. If you'd seen that space before we lit it, all that stuff helps. All of that stuff helps. Lighting and a little bit of atmosphere, which is the smoke, you know. All of that stuff creates a mood, that intention, you know, that plus lighting, plus smoke, plus intention really can create the feeling of a claustrophobic kind of physical world. And me and Casper kind of went at it a bit.
Yeah.
We weren't scared. Tala, you did brilliantly, because wasn't it like one of the first times you'd ever really sort of done stuff like that?
yeah, I mean, I hadn't done any fights since drama school, I don't think, which is mainly more theatre and swords. But yeah, I mean, Casper and Steve have got so much experience with fight scenes, so I just trusted them really and went for it. Still got a massive scar on my leg from fighting with Casper Van Dien, but I wear it with pride.
You got a scar on your neck?
I've just got
Wait.
Tala. I've just got mental scars.
Well, that was.
I was going to say that's what I've got. There was that incident, Casper, where, you know, we had this stunt where, you know, Casper has to roll back down a corridor. It's pretty it's the kind of thing that can go very wrong. And you know, we had a stunt double that was, you know, we were filming right up to the point where the stunt's going to happen, and we're saying, right, well, we'll cut, and then Casper steps out and we'll put the stunt guy in. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then Casper says, but just keep rolling a little bit. And I thought, he's going to do it, isn't he? And so I didn't say anything, and none of the crew know it's coming. And then Casper just decided to perform the stunt. Thankfully, it went perfectly well and looks amazing. Yeah, but then it was like, should we do another one? I was like, no, I think we've got it.
But I will point out, yet again, that was another time where Casper wasn't being completely sort of adventurous for the sake of it. We were up against the clock. We'd got like half an hour to shoot the scene, and it was a massive fight. And by Casper taking that opportunity, by that chance, it gave us a little bit of time on the back end to actually, I think, Tom, that day we were going, okay, we're going to have to stay in this shot for the whole thing. By Casper doing that role and by doing that stunt, it actually meant we had 10 minutes to tighten up and do 2 close-ups of both me and Casper. And that Casper knew that, and it's those moments during a little indie where it literally elevates it by having something to cut to. And if you've got something to cut to, you've then got a jigsaw puzzle. But if you've only got one shot and that's it, you're stuck with what you've got. And like Tom said, you would have had to have cut. We would then have had to have cut to something else, which meant that we would have had to then cut to the stunt, which meant we would have then had to cut to something else. And by him just taking that on the chin and going, I'm going to do it, it gave us that little bit of extra time to have another angle, which is amazing.
But also he was just showing off, isn't it?
Also, he's stupid.
Well,
Let's be honest.
well, I think I turned to the DP, George Burt, and just said, please tell me you got that. And he was like, oh, I got it. And I was like, thank God, because it looks incredible. And, you know, it really, like, I think whenever you have an actor that's willing to go there, it just makes the scene better. I mean, you know, we all know the trick. We all know the language of cinema now. So we know when it's a stunt double. We can feel it. And then when you see someone like Casper do that, you go, okay, well, that just looked cool. You know, so yeah, very grateful you did that, Casper. Thanks.
Oh, I just rolled with it.
Well, Casper,
There's no ham like old ham, Casper.
You would know.
I know.
It is.
Casper and Stephen, you guys are both also directors in your own right. Are you guys constantly cognizant of those demands while you're shooting scenes?
You go first.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
You go.
Okay, I'll go for a second. Yeah, when you're in that and you go, okay, we have like Stephen and both Tom we're both saying we had no time whatsoever, and I was like, you're gonna have to do a whole setup with the stunt guy. And nothing against stunt guys, I love them. They save me, they make me look incredible. They can always do it 100,000 times better. But when you have absolutely no time, and you know, okay, if I just do this roll back and I go really hard and I do this and I make it as believable as possible, and then we have more time to shoot something else. And having been in the director's chair and been an actor for 30 something years, but as being in director's chair, knowing that and just going, there's no way we're going to get that. We're going to have to cut it. And then going as an actor going, if we cut it, it's going to really jeopardize the production value, or possibly, like Stephen and I we're the two guys in the scene, and like you said, cut away, cut to that, and looks like crap. But if you can do it and you're able to do it without getting hurt, then you're lucky. And yeah, so that part of it, yes.
I think sometimes it can be, it's a blessing and a curse. And I would say for the actual director of the piece, it can be a nightmare if you've got somebody who knows how this stuff works. But hopefully you're sort of, when you're watching, when I direct, I always say before the show starts or before the movie starts, anybody has any ideas, please tell me them. Because when you're so focused in this world, and you're at Video Village, or you're doing what you're doing, and you're looking over here, you might not see over there that the sun is setting, right? As a really obvious example. And if Brad, the camera assistant, goes, Steve, look over there, you know, a director who goes, can you not do that, Brad, is a dick, because it's still the director's name on the top of the thing. Yeah. It's very easy just to go like that and go, Brad's had a great idea, let's do that. And Tom and I, you know, I absolutely trusted Tom 100%. And it actually meant that I could go completely sort of deep into my character. But there are times when you notice something, and Tom was very smart and understanding, and said to me, you know, any ideas you have, throw them at me in. And I think that if that's where we go back to that thing of a collaborative clock, you know, we are all cogs and we're all making one thing. We're not making hundreds of different versions of it, we're making one. And all of that helps towards the final product.
And it really helps. It when everyone is in tune and marching towards the guns, it really does help just to know how to steal that little moment there and that moment there, and stop the whole thing coming to a halt, and then the stunt double coming in and doing his thing. Now, the stunt double generally does things far better than I do, but sometimes when I do a double, or when Casper does a double, we may not be as facile and slick. He is, of course, not me. But sometimes the actor can make it real for his character, and that actually is all you need. Is just the reality in that moment and saving that setup time.
That's very interesting. I was also interested in the actual not alien language, but I guess it would be other human language, Rayan, that you developed and how you performed. Can you tell me about how you came up with this?
Well, I mean, in terms of like creating the language, you know, I like the idea when you build like a fleshed out world. You know, I was aware when we were making the movie that, you know, it was a small cast, you know, we were in a confined location, and, you know, I know those kind of films can work if the world around them feels believable and you know, like something that could really exist. And, you know, the plot of the film sees, you know, just to loosely describe it, is there's a gate that appears above Earth, and when you travel through it, there's another planet on the other side. But there's an 18-year discrepancy. So for every 1 year on Earth, 18 years go by there. And so for anybody leaving Earth 30 years after the gate arrives, you know, they're dealing with the descendants of those original immigrants who are 580 years on. And so it felt important to me that it's like, well, language will have developed, fashion will have developed. And, you know, we kind of treated Rio as this sort of brand new colony that had a mix of Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, English, and had sort of melded together and then evolved from there. So we used a lot of real words as the base point, and then started to evolve them on. You know, how would that sound if you started to use them in slang? How would this sound if you started to, you know, get into a long-winded conversation? And so it kind of becomes like a real challenge where you deep dive into it. And, you know, I've got a book lying around that's got 800 Rian words in it, the complete alphabet we designed, you know, to make it feel tangible and real, you know. And then a big part of that was developing the accent, because we didn't want the characters to have a earthbound accent, you know, because they just wouldn't. And Tala did a phenomenal job putting that together. I mean, you can talk a little bit about your process on that, I think.
You so smart.
Just made it up, innit, you know. Yeah, I just sent Tom a lot of versions, I think, of, you know, before we started filming, of all the different accent variations and sort of.
Give us a little give us a little.
I can't remember any of it. They're all swear words.
I think you sent me what. Yeah, that's the one. That is a word. You sent me one that you were like, you sort of mixed. I believe you were like, I'm playing around with Dutch and New York and mixing them together. And I think, and that's kind of what we ended up rolling with, because it sounded just not of Earth, you know, like a kind of accent that you just don't hear. So,
but with the roots somewhere that you can hear it's something that is on Earth, because
nice New Amsterdam accent.
Yeah.
Very good.
Now, G-Lock gives us a nice open ending. There's some very exciting stuff kind of on the horizon as the film comes to a close. Is there a future for this universe, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely know what I would do with it and where I would take it from here. And it always comes down to, is there a demand for it? You know, if the world connects with people, then I think that we kind of leave the movie in a nice place where, you know, Tala and Stephen's characters have made, you know, a real bond with each other that, you know, I'd like to explore and push from there. And I think that the movie leaves us in a nice place to explore, okay, well, you've kind of dealt with your past mistakes. You know, how do you make sure you don't repeat them? You know, and I think that would kind of be an interesting angle to take the film in thematically, you know?
With the Decker and Henry spinoff, is that what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, that's it, the buddy cop show.
You already know John's trunk is packed with goodies. He's prepared for anything.
I mean, what I would love to do.
There's no junk in John's trunk.
No junk. I'd love to explore this in some sort of TV show format, though. I think would be a really interesting, because there's so much to explore that we just couldn't do in this film version. You know, and I've got tons of notepads filled with, you know, the culture on Rhia, what Earth is like as it's abandoned, and there's all this stuff to explore that I'd love to take a deep dive into, really. So, I mean, my ideal format going forward would be to explore it in TV.
You went full James Cameron on it. That's great.
Yeah, we got it.
That's awesome.
It was fascinating going out to dinner with him. Steve and I went out to dinner with Tom, and we were just, before we started filming, well, for me, I don't know if you had filmed it already, but for me, when I got there and we did that, I was so thrilled because I got so much confidence in him from the way he spoke about the script, already from reading the script, of course, but then the way he spoke about it and all the details he had, and then his knowledge of cinematic history and everything. It was fascinating for me. So I definitely had more confidence. I felt in him as a director, and with it shooting this movie when we went into it, just by going out with him and speaking to him about it. So it's just, he really is like that with what he's talking about right now.
That was our Curry, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
within old Yorktown city walls.
Yes.
Indeed.
Alien language and curry. It's the perfect way to wrap it up. I think that's it for the San Diego Comic-Con at Home panel for G-Lock. I'm SYFY Wire's Jacob Oller, and a big thanks to filmmaker Tom Paton, Stephen Moyer, Casper Van Dien, Tala Gouveia, and of course, John Rhys-Davies. Thank you so much for joining us today. G-Lock is out on digital, on demand, and DVD on August 11th.